Hey, Taylor, great episode. I 100% agree with you with the OSR and how we played back in the day and all that kind of stuff. Glad to see you embracing kind of or maybe not embracing, but checking out the classic adventure gaming stuff. I think there's a lot to be gained from investigating that and seeing what those guys over in Germany and Europe have kind of rediscovered that we've kind of muddled up over here in the States.
Operative word, we. I'd like to maintain that I have been on the classic adventure bandwagon for years at this point, but it may not. I know it may not seem like it with as little as I play these days.
As far as the health stuff, you got to take care of yourself, man. You got to be there for your family, so no worries there. And as far as taking hiatuses, you may not be the only one, so we'll see how all that goes. But take care. I look forward to talking to you soon, and thank you so much for that entry for a Conan Christmas. That should be a good episode.
I am looking forward to it.
Or had been when this was recorded.
One of the things, and I may elaborate on this in a bit, but one of the things that had kind of hurt me in the last couple months or so has been a general apathy. I will listen to an actual play, I will listen to a podcast, and I just zone out. I don't feel it. And it's odd, because those were the things that used to charge me up, that would keep me moving between sessions, because you can always listen to a podcast, you can always watch an actual play, but can't always play. And so used to be, that was a way to keep me interested, but these days it just doesn't work anymore. Don't know. Thank you for calling in. Thank you for staying on the air. And strategy preview, one of the things that I'm kind of forcing myself to do, I'm trying to call in to other shows again, in part because that forces me to listen to other shows, and in part it forces me to be a part of the podcast community. And community is one of my big motivators. If I feel like I am part of something, then I feel a lot more better. I feel it's a good thing. It's a good thing to be part of a bigger whole, and where that whole encompasses some of the Anchorverse, that whole encompasses the Classic Adventure. I appreciate the good work the Classic Adventure folks are doing. It's been fun meeting some of the names that I've heard on other entries. Sorry, I'm in a little bit of traffic, so my words are eluding me, but a couple people involved in that podcast, in that community, are creators, people who have made products, people who have made podcasts, people who have made shows that I heard about in other places. So it's almost like a little bit of, I finally stopped being starstruck over meeting fellow D-list celebrities. Man, you guys might even be D+, but anyway, I digress. The important part of this whole experience, thank you, podcast ecosystem, for being there, being a sort of a constant as we move forward chronologically, but then stagnate. Stagnate with the good gaming that kind of came about prior to 1985.
Hey Taylor, Jason here. Just want to say, enjoyed your adversarial player episode. Yeah, it definitely comes down to player intent, right? I fully agree with that. I've done things like attack and kill other members of the party in Hobbs's games, and done all kinds of things that a lot of people consider adversarial. I think, though, when we look at intent, we do need to look at it. It's not always malicious, but it can still be adversarial. If you look over at the Minions and Musings podcast, and I'm driving, so I don't remember the episode number, but Evil Jeff talked about how he likes to trick the GM, and he likes to, scheme against the referee. And I think at that point, when you're doing that, and he's not doing it to ruin the game. He's doing it. I want to say he said he was doing it to keep people and keep the referee on their toes, and because he, I don't know. But to me, if you're actively scheming against the GM, then maybe that's adversarial. So I think that is adversarial play at that point. But we may be picking hairs here. I don't know. But all in all, I think it was a good episode, and 100% it comes down to intent. If you have a player that's all about themselves and they're flipping the table when things don't go their way and all that, then, the easy answer is don't have them at your table anymore. I hope you've had and are having and will still have happy holidays and some good times with your family, and I will talk to you soon. Look forward to what you do in the new year.
Cue the blurred lines musical track that'll prevent my non-monetized YouTube from monetizing. But because there is definitely shades of gray involved in this whole process. Because when I was originally recording the episode, I was gung-ho that conspiring against the GM, trying to get the GM on his back foot, was by necessity adversarial. I could think of no situation where trying to mess with the player, the ref like that, would not be kind of adversarial. And not necessarily in a bad way. You may be messing with him because you're his friend, but still, it's contrary to the spirit of the game. But then I remembered I've done that before. I'm thinking specifically talking about playing against Jason in Jason's games, that is Jason Prime, Kalmata. One of the Kalmata claims to fame is that it is West Marches. It is one of the longest running YouTube West Marches style games that exists, in my experience, where the players set the timetable, the players set up then, and then you start in town, you end in town. And I remember we deviated from that. We had a multi-parter because we had a big adventure planned, and that didn't go so well. We had like a 6-month gap because no one's schedule aligned. But the moral of the story, it was a big adventure because it was Aaron's first treasure. Aaron Coleman, for whom the last episode was dedicated, he was one of the OG players with his wizard, and one of the original pieces of treasure he found was a randomly rolled treasure map, and we were gonna find what was at the end of that map, and we got together on a private chat and we talked about what we might find, how we might proceed, what our strategy might be, and it was about excitement, and we joked that this was our anti-Hobbs conspiracy chat, but it was more of a work together. It was more of a figure out our game plan together kind of experience, and I don't think I'm getting a little choky. It was one of the too few times I got to play with Aaron, but the moral of the story, we spent a lot of time in that chat thinking about what the game was going to be about. What was our strategy? Where were we going to go? And it eventually, in that 6-month hiatus, turned into child picture sharing. We had a lot of family conversations going on, but in that situation, were we conspiring against Hobbs? Were we coming up with ways to circumvent things we thought he might throw at us? Well, maybe, but it wasn't because we were trying to put him on his back foot. It was because we were being competitive. We knew we had a big adventure ahead of us. We knew we were going to be in the field for a long time, and we needed to think on our toes. What do we know about the environment based on other APs? What do we remember from our other experiences? What do we think might be there based on what we know about the hex map? I remember Jason was cool enough to leave the hex map as revealed up as his Roll20 basic thingy. So we popped in and we studied it and took some screen caps, and so we went in with a plan, and so it was that times down to that gray area between adversarial and competitive, and we wanted to win. We wanted to find that treasure, and Jason put that treasure there. So I think he was cool with us finding that treasure. We had a very climactic battle too, which had some follow-up quests that I don't know if we're ever going to get to follow up on, but yeah, competitive. So definitely a blurred line there, definitely a gray area there, and at the end of the day it comes down to, like you said, intent and spirit of the table. Thank you for calling in.
Hey, Riley here. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Loved the episode on adversarial players. I think you shortchanged yourself on one of the counts. You almost mentioned conspiracy and derailment, but then you only went to speak about derailment. I think conspiracy, when players obfuscate plans from the game master, that is adversarial. The only reason to do that would be if there's a perceived player versus GM mindset. In addition, I think there was a common trend that uh, if players are purposely going against table expectations, that is adversarial, whether it's to the game master or the other players. Anyway, great episode. Keep it up. I look forward to the next one. Happy holidays. Talk to you later.
That I did. And I'm not sure if I was talking about that while I was walking in the drizzle or if I was talking about that behind the wheel. But what I will say is I'm going to blame not having enough mic time, having gotten to my destination. And thank you for calling it in. It's a great point that we can expound on a little bit. In the episode, I talked at length about players who get their jollies from putting the referee on his back foot. So the kind of person who, knowing that we're here to playtest Module X, or knowing that we're at a convention and we signed up for Module Y, who bypasses the objective, or the player who, identifying that the NPC shopkeep didn't even have a name prior to the conversation we came up with, going into full thespian RP mode and soaking the entire life story out of him. So, I talked about that at length. That is the intentional putting your DM on his back foot for funsies. And instead, we're going to lean into the other half of this equation: intentional obfuscation of player plans so as to prevent DM reprisal. There's definitely a degree of pressure on the runner of the game to put challenges in front of the party that will make them think and make them earn the victory. I can understand how that can, in the presence of advanced knowledge, turn into a prepared counter for the player plans. So that's almost like DM metagaming. Can a dungeon master metagame? I would say yes. If the DM knows what the player is going to do and intentionally changes or formulates encounters to interact with what the party is planning on doing in a manner that is adversarial to the party, absolutely. DM metagaming. But also kind of a breach of trust. The role of the referee, and the reason that I use the term referee interchangeably with GM, DM, and whatever, is because they are intended to be a neutral arbiter. The challenges are what they are, the world is what it is, and the role of that particular player is to arbitrate what happens. If the party TPKs, you don't win. If the party Monty Halls, you don't win. It's the fate of the party is not tied to DM performance. DM performance is tied to a fair arbitration of what goes on. And the winning of the game for the referee is in successful execution. So, and I think this was a big thing in 3E. One of the reasons that they made so many rules player-facing instead of essentially all of them being DM-facing is because there was a sense of competition.
In a quarter mile, turn right onto US 1, signs for Jacksonville.
And I'm going to leave that in. Hopefully the sat nav there got caught on the recording. I'm going to leave that in just for ambiance. But it boils down to a term that I should have used and totally spaced, is adversarial play versus competitive play. And while at most tables, competitive is within the party kind of frowned upon, I've played at tables where competition between the referee and the players was a real thing. And, again, you tap into it at the very end. The common theme, and I agree, that was the common theme of the episode, and I think a common theme with the stories that everyone had shared. Thank you for interacting, everyone who posted or commented on the social media outlets where I had kind of publicized this episode. A big common theme for what constituted adversarial play on the part of the player were experiences where the player did things to disrupt or damage the experience at the table. One story was about a player who intentionally RP'd to sow discord and tried to turn the party against itself. One of them talked about a referee who was putting things in the game that were the orc babies kind of thing, knowing that it was going to split the party. Great stuff. I appreciate the interaction, and they all share a common theme, and that is if a player or if a person at the table, DM or player, goes into the game with the expectation to jack up the experience for the rest of the group, that's the spirit of adversarial play. I hope that future episodes jive for you like this one did, and I hope to hear you call in again.
Hey Taylor, this is Mirke. I enjoyed your latest Adversarial Player episode. It's a good reminder that open and honest conversations will do wonders. And it's also cool how you were highlighting so many different play styles, and they're all valid. It's just what does the table want? So cool reminder. Thanks for the episode. Take care.
Thank you, my man, for calling in, for the encouragement to keep recording, and for keeping the conversation moving. Absolutely, every table is a little different, but once it gets into your groove, that's a good groove to be.
Also, thanks for representing the introvert and sharing how it's, not always pleasant to put yourself out there and kind of stand up for yourself, but it's great to hear an example of you doing that and it working very well in your group. So thanks for that as well. Take care.
I am glad to provide the service. Absolutely, though, when you're with a new table or you're got new players, sometimes it's more challenging than others. When I was running games at the comic shop, I remember having an easy time with new players and new tables. And I think that in part was because my brain told me, you're already among friends. You're buddies with the shop owner and employees, you're buddies with the other DMs, and these new players, it's going to be fun introducing them into how we roll. But in other circumstances, it can be rough. Like going into a new table for the first time, a lot of the time, to tie back to my first response to the first part of your call, it's about the groove. when I'm coming in as a player to a pre-established group or getting into a new group with other people who have played together before, I assume they have a groove. And I have to kind of feel them out to figure out how it works.
In half a mile, take exit 5A for Florida 13 North, San Jose Boulevard.
And how to fit in with them. I have a story that I recently recorded for an upcoming episode, maybe one of the first ones in the new year, talking about a group where I felt very confident that I knew how their groove would work because we played board games and they were very competitive. But then as soon as we got into an RPG, whoa, I was not invited back. I did not guess I did not read the room, so to speak.
Continue on Florida 13 North for 3/4 of a mile.
Prior to coming to the table. But I will leave that story to that episode. And in running games as well, it can get nerve-wracking. Even though, like I said, at the comic shop, and you're surrounded by friends, you feel a lot of comfort, but when you're with a new game or when you're online, but moreover for me, if it's been a while, oh man, that's rough. And honestly, these days, it's always been a while. I'll show up, I'll run 2 or 3 games, and then the stars will align, the cosmos having figured out that I'm happy for a change, and boom, somebody dies, the kids get sick, the car breaks down, just something. Something comes up and it will derail the thing, and there's always this gap between when I'm able to run games and when I'm... Oh wow, is that a little Christmas thing? Chick-fil-A looks to have had a little like Christmas thing. Oh, I bet they had a Santa. Oh, need to pay attention to the road. Also to the podcast, what was I talking about? If I am rusty or I feel nervous, I am tempted to fudge. That is where I have to put in, because I am firmly in the anti-fudge camp. The only fudge dice should be the novelty candy that you give to your gamer girlfriend on Valentine's. But yeah, I am being naturally conflict averse, feeling out of place and on my back foot. The temptation is real. I want them to walk away remembering a good time, and the temptation is real, and I have to actually put together techniques to prevent the fudging. One of them, rolling in the open. I'm not religious about rolling in the open, but I
Turn right,
do.
then turn right.
Because like I said, I'm tempted to fudge, and if I roll in the open, I can't. Similarly, I tell the players before they roll what the target they're looking to beat is. In some cases, the rules literally say not to do that, but I do it anyway because I'm tempted to cheat in favor of the players. I'm tempted to become soft, and that usually, once I get into the groove, once I have that trust going, it's good to go, not worried. But before I'm in my zone, before we're in that groove, temptation is there. And so that's, being the introvert GM. Hey, new episode, or new podcast name for next year. But yeah,
Head southwest.
well, I'm at my destination. Don't tell me to go anywhere. But yeah, anyway, I am at my destination, so I'm going to end this response. But anyway, very good point. And I hope I hope for other folks who want to play or run and who are intimidated by the social aspect, you are not alone. All you got to do is figure out that groove. Hey Taylor, good to hear you on again. And it's really interesting to talk about evolution and how even campaigns go. I know that in a long-running campaign I ran back in high school of Oriental Adventures, we started with the Oriental Adventures book. And then when second edition came out, there was like a hack that we found. And I don't know how we got it. Maybe they released it. I don't know. Was internet around back then? It's wacky, isn't it? It feels like the internet is so ubiquitous now that it's hard to remember when you didn't have it. Anyway, And then we kind of changed over and evolved from running our OA campaign to second edition, and then the similar thing happened when third edition came along. I guess we were running third edition, and then we evolved into running 3.5 when they had it revised out. It was a long running campaign, and then some of my 3.5 games I rolled into Pathfinder when that came out too. So yeah, it's pretty curious that when you game, I guess you kind of do that, especially with an ongoing campaign. I confess to being a bit of an edition warrior there. I always liked 3.0 more than I liked 3.5. They say there were stuff that was fixed in 3.5 to make it more balanced, but man, that's not called imbalance, that's called character. I don't know if I've done that recently, but I definitely say the way I play Traveler now, using Mongoose Traveler 2, is different than the way I played Traveler before, which was Classic Traveler or Mega Traveler, which is my favorite iteration of Traveler. I love the task system. I actually want to, it reminds me I want to get 2300 AD to the table. Maybe not in that verse, but a different one. But yeah, I think it's kind of cool to look at our progression and realize that we didn't play, and even now with AD&D, I would like to play AD&D, but there's a lot of rules we didn't use, like the weapon class adjustments and the like. And it'd be cool to run things as written and understand segments and how that works and all that kind of stuff. But you want to get the game playing and you just play, and you don't really worry about someone's going to come and tell you you're not playing it correctly. You just play your game, right? That's the way it used to be. Probably still should be. Anyway, take care, Taylor. Yeah, let me know if you want to chat about stuff. I understand the gray. Sometimes it's hard to get motivated. Take care of yourself, man, and I'll talk to you soon. 100%. Don't worry what the talking heads or the typing fingers have to say, so long as your table is playing the game. It is a blast going back and reading the rules with clean eyes, with blank minds, seeing the rules in a new way. It's almost like playing a different game, even as familiar as it may feel. But at the end of the day, so long as you're playing, you've got a bit of a, we'll call it a cred advantage against most of those keyboard warriors. Thank you, Karl, for calling in, and I may chat you up. I will be tempted by that offer, but I also may chat you up at the end of this episode, talking a little bit more about what I am feeling, how it is hitting, and what I am doing about it.
Hey Taylor, Riley here. Just finished listening to your episode on prep. Really interesting discussion. I think there's hard to compare low versus high prep when you're looking at the extremes, right? Because the extreme of high prep is you never finish and you never play, whereas low prep you actually do get to the game table. And the low prep, or sorry, no prep would be the extreme of that. You can still run a game, and depending on the style of game and potentially it runs really well. However, I do agree for a certain style of game, and I think the game that you like to play and that you talk about, some level of prep is necessary. I mean, if you want to have a game that values the exploration pillar of play, then there needs to be a world that exists to explore, not something. I mean, when you look at story games or play by PBTA games, you kind of lose that exploration because you're creating it. So you're not really discovering it necessarily. I mean, in a sense of word, you are discovering it through creative collaboration, but I don't think that's the style of game that we're talking about here. So obviously, there's some middle ground there. Anyway, great episode. Talk to you later.
You are correct. That is not the style of game I tend to talk about, nor the style of game that I tend to play. Now, have I played something similar before? I've had people at my table who tried. I never really got into it. It's just not my thing. I'm not an improv kind of person. That is an improv theater. I'm pretty okay at improving at the table, but I'm not an improv theater kind of guy. I'm not interested. Now, I have done creative writing workshops, and I enjoy creating writing workshops. But still, in those kind of workshops, I maintain control over my story. Other writers would maintain control over their stories, but the purpose of the group was to kind of like fill it in. And in the same sense, fantasy adventure games are story generators. It's just the way you generate the story is different. With a narrativist game, I'll use the polite term for it, but in a narrativist game, you create the story much as akin you would in a writer's workshop, or maybe a collaborative workshop, but whereas with the adventure game, it's a game. You put the world out there, and how much of that world depends on how you're comfortable and how your table interacts with it, and how much that fits into your style. The story comes after, and I think I've done an episode on this, but plot is what you tell the other refs at Waffle House 2 a.m. after the session's over. Two different schools of thought.
Hey Taylor, this is Mirke. Just listened to your Confessions of a High Prep GM episode and really like that. A lot of good thoughts, makes sense. I just wanted to pass along some thoughts, do what you want with them. But I guess thought number one, I have struggled with that same terrain issue where you just have a mountain popping out of nowhere unexpectedly. So that's why I created the ladder table terrain generation PDF to make a progression from low or high elevation to the opposite elevation. And there's that progression, so you don't have to worry about that weirdness.
See, and here I am, being out of the loop, not hanging out on the ADD. Didn't even know. I'm going to have to look this up.
But your point still stands, because even though you'll kind of know what's coming next, if you're progressing towards mountains, you still don't know exactly what's going to be in that hex, and you can't really help your players be prepared for it if you don't really know what's going to be there, even if you do have some guesses. Thought number two, I wanted to do a completely random rolling game with my girls. It wasn't that I was like a no prep GM. I wanted us all to work together on it. But at first, I was kind of taking charge and trying to set things up, so making a town. But instead of just like saying, here's the town, here's an NPC that's going to give us some jobs that we're going to go do, I was thinking, well, we should give it some history and some character, and we should also give the NPCs some history and some relationships, and really fleshing this out before we got going, so we would know what's going on there. But the girls weren't too involved, so they were, their eyes were glazing over. They were rather bored, and I should have involved them more and like had them roll, and not just roll, but interpret what that roll means.
Well, you got me beat, brother. I tried to get my kids to do it. They ate the dice. Or tried to.
But I was still new to it. So, kind of lesson learned, even if you're going for no prep, I wanted to involve the players. I should have involved them more and had them figuring out what's going on more as well. So it's not just them completely in the dark and me semi in the dark as I'm rolling, but like we're all in this together. And I guess that leads into thought number 3 about like solo play. I've wanted to be able to do these things in a solo session, and I figured solo would work better for it because you can stop and take the time to roll out the factions and the interplay between them. You can roll more NPCs and figure out their relationships instead of just like, just in time, on the spot, rolling up these things and then trying to make them work and make sense in the world afterwards. So what I've wanted to do for prep is essentially play like a solo game and figure things out as you go along, and then bring your players into the world, and then they can play in what you've already played and experienced. So those are just some thoughts I had. Like I said, do what you want with them. Thanks for the episode, and take care.
I will do what I want with them, and I want to publish them. Put them on this episode for the call-in palooza. I appreciate the call-ins. I appreciate the adventures you are having with your little girls. And even though you tend to play games that I don't play, that's okay. Because at the end of the day, you got some quick little episodes that I'm able to drip through. Now, that goes for Mirke here, and it goes for Riley, both of whom are new additions to the Anchorverse. Late additions, and I'm glad you made it, because Anchor is apparently going away. But what matters most is keeping the waves on the air, keeping that community alive, and to circle back to what we were talking about, keeping the game alive for the family. Again, thank you, Mirke, for calling in, and Riley too. Thank you, and Jason and Karl. Thank you, all of you guys, for making this episode happen.
Health update. So I told my wife I needed to go to the store and buy some cheese so I could record in the car. I know you guys love the background noise, but more importantly, the microphone on my phone appears to be a better microphone than the microphone I have at my desk, which is on a headset. So I do know that we are over the half-hour mark, and I did say that I was trying to keep these things to half an hour, but we had enough call-ins. I wanted to hit all of the call-ins. Now, I do have some other call-ins that I did not hit. One from Mike over the Chicago Wizard. One older than that for talking about naval wargaming. So I do have some that I'm saving for a better schedule. I have some people I'd like to talk with, do like a tandem cast, but just got to figure that schedule piece out. And so we'll start on a high note. I am doing a little bit of gaming again. Folks who look at the YouTube side of this will know this already, but I found out while I was reading through the strategic review, back catalogs, of course, that the literal first thing TSR put out, or at least the first issue, solo play rules. There were some rules to generate dungeons on the fly so you could play by yourself. And I was like, what a coincidence. I'm by myself sometimes. And so that's what I have been doing. Now, it took me a while to get it kind of squared away, but I figured out that if I wake up on time, then I can actually play a little bit in the morning. So I have about half an hour from about 4:15 to 4:45 where I can sit down and do game stuff. And so the last couple weeks I'd been using that time to play a little bit, edit a little bit, put some sound in there, and by and large I'm happy with it. I learned a bit, but I would be more than willing to take some feedback on it. If the music was too loud, if the flow was wrong, if you'd prefer other images to float, please let me know. Don't hesitate to call in at the Whispering GM call-in thingy. It's in the show notes. I forget what it's called. SpeakPipe. So I do have a game going again, even if it is just myself, until such time as my 2-year-old allows me to play at night again. So what happened here when the twins were this age, what they were doing is they were making it very hard for me to put them to bed. I would go and put them in bed at 8, and then it would be 9, 10 o'clock before they would actually fall asleep and be in bed. It was just brutal. They had each other. They enjoyed the playing. They enjoyed trying to shove their way out of me. They would scream, and it just was hard to get them to go to bed. We are dealing with essentially the same thing with the new baby. Now, my wife is doing a lot of the baby stuff, but she is not as devoted to putting him in bed. And so instead of sitting there in the room with him at 8, hugging him to sleep for between 30 and 300 minutes, she lets him play. She lets him run around the house. She lets him do, and then maybe somewhere between 8:30 and 9:30, she'll put him in his bed, and then he'll complain a little bit. Y'all aren't interested in that. What y'all are interested in is, why haven't I been playing at night? Well, the answer is the night stuff. The baby, he's 2 now, so he's not really a baby anymore, but he's a baby until I stop wiping his that's my rule. But because his schedule doesn't line up, I just don't have evenings anymore. And I had not tried playing games in the morning before, just because I need to exercise. I'm better weight-wise. I'm hovering around 205. That's much better than the 215 I was when I complained about this for the first time. I'm trying, and I feel really bad about this. I was trying to take advantage of the Lenten fast, as we are in the season of Lent as I record this, to lose weight. Keep my exercise, but then be all spiritual and stuff. And it's not really working for me, but that's probably because I have the wrong heart. Rewind a little bit. Christmas time, I had said I was trying to get some vitamins. I was trying to do... That did not work at all. We were sick, like you wouldn't believe sick. From the middle to the end of December, it was just bad. I actually ended up, I don't know what they brought home, SARS, Black Plague, what, I don't know, but I'll spare you the details. But for me in particular, I started experiencing certain symptoms. I actually had a health scare. I had some symptoms that one of my direct line relatives had before they were diagnosed with cancer that ended up killing them. So that made me a little nervous. I went and I saw a specialist in January, and praise God, I'm not done yet. I do have something going on. It's not serious, and that's a high note. But December got really kind of dark because of that, and like I kind of embarrassed myself a little bit. I was changing the headlight in my recording studio, and I dropped the bulb into the engine block, and I just broke down in tears on the on the driveway. And it's like, dude, it's like a $5 light bulb, if that. And this is me in retrospect, but at the time it was just, December was really hard. And so I'm coming out on the other side, and the multivitamins are not working, namely because I'm decent about taking them myself. My wife is not. She will not take them, so she gets sick with some degree of regularity, getting it from the baby. She has not been giving the multivitamins to our children, so that's not working. So what we're going to try to do next is get them to wash hands. They're good about washing their hands after eating, because they make a giant mess, and if we don't wash their hands, then the house is a giant mess. But they also, I'm selling my wife on having them wash their hands before eating, and I'm selling the kids on it. I told the more suggestible twin that about germs and how germs make you sick, and if you wash your hands, then you kill the germs. And he came back to me too. He was in the bathroom. He goes, da 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 da, and I came over and I was like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm killing germs." And I'm like, "Good boy." And then I'm going to get a beach towel because there's now an inch of water on the floor. But that inch of water is worth it if I stop getting these plagues. So we'll see if that works. I am in better spirits now than I was in December, and I think I can credit that to doing that solo play. I don't feel like a charlatan anymore. And Yes, I'm not playing. Yes, I'm not writing a lot of blog posts, but I do have some stuff. I'm participating in the hobby, and that makes me feel like I'm not useless. So morale has improved for me a little bit. I had a stomach virus over the weekend that ran through our house. That sucked. Sunday, I woke up at like 2 a.m. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. But I did get to watch the Black Cauldron, so I may write a blog post about that, because not as dark as people say it is. Yes, it's darker than the Disney of today, but to be fair, it's not hard. What else did I want to tell you guys? Oh, podcasts. I mentioned earlier in the episode that it was hard for me to listen to actual plays. Now, that is actually turned over a bit, and it's hard because it's hard for me to listen to anything long form. I mentioned Mirke the Meek and Riley of his podcast name, that I should know that, in that I'm shilling him right now, but I'm just not. Diegetic advancement. But anyway, where was I going with the story? Their episodes are like 10 minutes long. I can do 10 minutes. But I'm finding that actual plays are frequently like 3 hours long. And a lot of podcasts are converted from streams. So you have these 2-3 hour blocks of time. I just can't do it. Like, I have a hard time with 45 minutes these days, and I think it's partially because of just interruptions. Like, I like to listen. I work from home now, so I don't have a commute to listen to it. My current job is a lot more social than the last one, so I can't listen to it while I'm coding. And then then the exercise in the morning, my kids keep waking up. But where I'm trying to go with that is because he'll come in and he wants to talk. I'll hear him doing something. Like, I'll hear the sink turn on and like, nope, that's a big no. And so I have to stop and I have to go get him. And I just can't keep context for that long. Half an hour I've found I can manage. But that does mean if you're releasing episodes that are more than half an hour, there is a good chance that I listen to like the first 10 minutes of it and then drop. Not because I don't love you, but just I can't. I have intentionally curated my list. I've got a long backlog of podcasts that are 10, 15, 20 minutes, and I'm listening to those. And I have been trying to call in. I have been failing to call in because Anchor just does not make it easy. You can call in from the website. It's very easy to call in from the website. But I'm never at my computer. I'm always on my phone. And that was the biggest thing that made Anchor fun. It makes me really sad that the app is slowly kind of going away. They're finally discontinuing it. And I'm probably going to keep distributing here. I'm going to stay on the air, just maybe not the way I have been. Either way, my machine here says I'm coming up on 16 minutes. That's probably going to put this episode into the Taylor won't listen to it territory in terms of length. But I wanted to answer and use all of the call-ins I have, because I have 4 topics that I want to talk about, one of which is already recorded. It just needs to get through editing. In any case, thank you for putting up with this little update. Thank you for listening, and thank you for coming back. Yeah, I know it's been a bit. I appreciate you all the way.
And that wraps up this episode of the Whispering GM podcast, a product of Clericware Ringmail and an independently operated production for educational and informative purposes, released under the Totally Steal This license. Some sound effects are retrieved from Pixabay, made available under the Creative Commons 0. Others are retrieved from Mixkit.co and used under the Mixkit.co royalty-free music license. Theme music is Dirty Blues, composed by Michael Ramir C., retrieved from Mixkit.co and also included under the Mixkit.co royalty-free music license. Parties interested in or with questions regarding the podcast are encouraged to reach out via the methods provided on the Clericware Ringmail blog. Thank you for listening, and delve on.